Yeah.
Defensively, Vince, look, I think what this game showed is even though Notre Dame has been a really good defense for a long time, including 2021, they gave up more points in this game than they gave up the entire month of November.
That's true.
And it was a bad game. However, we can't just chalk it up to a bad game. I think that would be irresponsible analysis, in my opinion. And I think part of it was just a bad game. I think if they played again, there's no way Oklahoma State has 600 yards. But it doesn't take away from the flaws that were exposed in this game.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think not the biggest one, but the first one, we're going to start kind of closest to the ball and work back. I've seen a lot of people say that what they saw in the game on Saturday, Vince, was they didn't have enough speed at linebacker. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think speed at linebacker is a problem. I think length at linebacker is the problem. And that's the thing about a guy like Maris Luafau. We've said this is a game you really would have liked to see Maris play because he can not only run, but he's long, he's rangy. J.D. Bertrand, not one time did J.D. Bertrand get beat because he wasn't fast enough to get to where he needed to get to.
Right.
If anything, at times he was a little bit out of control and got there too quickly. Not from a speed standpoint, but just he came free on a blitz. The problem that he had, the problem that Jack Kaiser had when he got beat up the seam, it wasn't that Jack got outran. He didn't. He was right where he needed to be. He just is short. He's got short arms and he's short, and guy was able to take advantage of that. Drew White is never, in my opinion, it's rare do you see an occasion where Drew White is not fast enough to get to where he needs to get to. That was true against Oklahoma State. It wasn't a problem for J.D. Bertrand to get to where he needed to get to. It's once he got there, it was reminded that he was a 6-foot guy with shorter arms. Same thing with Drew White. And to me, yes, you want to get faster. That's true everywhere. You always want to get faster.
Always.
But I don't think it's so much of a speed thing as a length and a power thing. I think these two guys at linebacker are really good athletes, and JD and Drew White. They're smart kids. The problem is neither of them arrive at the ball with a ton of force.
Right.
And neither of them have the length to get their hands on. And Drew Tranquil had this problem at times too at Notre Dame because he's got like 30-inch arms, like really short arms. He had a tendency sometimes to get stiff-armed more than you'd think a normal 6'2" linebacker would get stiff-armed because, again, your height doesn't have any impact on this. It's all about your length, your arm length.
Yes, that's correct.
And your shoulder width. And that's the issue that these kids had was they just don't have the length to get to a running back and be able to get their arms out on them and bring them down. And I think that was more the issue. And so, yes, Notre Dame needs to get more athletic at linebacker. They need to improve the depth at linebacker. They had a lot of injuries this year, but they got to get longer. The good news is Marcus Freeman already knew this and has already started addressing it, which is why you look at the shortest guy they have is Jalen Sneed, who's about 6'2", with really long arms. I mean, I talked to a guy that's down at the Army All-American game down in San Antonio, Vince, and he said, like the one of the first guys everyone noticed just walking onto the field was Josh Burnham.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap, this guy is huge.
Exactly.
Right? Just long, big arms and things like that. Nolan Ziegler is like 6'3.5", 6'4", really long arms. Junior is 6'2" with long arms. Jalen Sneed, 6'1.5", 6'2" with really long arms. That length is improving. And that's going to be a key for Notre Dame is that.
I want to just add why length is so important because it closes down the margin of error. Okay. So when you're trying to square up somebody in the open field and you're trying to tackle them, right? And, you try to get your hands on them. If they juke you or they get outside of you or whatever, and you've got short arms, it's easier to get away from you. If you have long arms, you're wider, you have more everything, right? It's easier. The margin of error is smaller. So you have an opportunity to, if you make a mistake, it's okay because you can overcome that mistake because of your length. That's why it is so important, especially in open space. But look, the Notre Dame linebackers had no problem getting to where they needed to go on time. That wasn't the issue. It was a lot of times breaking down in space and making those tackles. Well, if you've got longer arms, you got broader shoulders, you have an opportunity to, there you go. Wheeze in the juice. I love this. It widens the strike zone. 100%. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's perfect, and thank you for the baseball analogy. I appreciate that as well. But that's 100% exactly what I'm saying. It widens the strike zone.
Because if you try to stiff arm me with your 31-inch arms, and I'm coming at you with my 34-inch arms, I'm still getting my hands on you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you stiff arm me with 34-inch arm, and I'm trying to attack you with 30-inch arms, I'm getting stiff armed. I mean, it's just the reality of it. And I think there's also a power aspect to that too.
For sure.
They got to get stronger there, a little bit more beef there. So I think linebacker position is one that needs to be improved, which is not a shocker. And then the other one is, I think if there's one position on the team right now that lacks the top to bottom talent to compete for a championship, it's the secondary.
Yep.
And I think that was exposed on Saturday. Look, Clarence Lewis is a good kid. We've talked about this. He's a young player, still just a sophomore. But there's a reason we've talked about him needing to be a safety, because name me another top 10 team that Clarence Lewis is playing for.
Sure.
And my thing is, like, I think it says a lot about Mike Mickens that he's able to get a converted receiver in Cam Hart to play at the level he played at. I had people tell me, like, well, of course they got burned. They didn't have Cam Hart in the game. Like, Cam Hart played the whole game.
Played the whole game. Except for
and I didn't see him. Exactly. Because in that series, they've been doing that all year. They've been rotating.
Right. 100%.
But I just kind of got a kick out of that, because it's like, yeah, exactly. You didn't see him because they never went at him. There was one time they went at him and he came up on, I think he fell down on a deep shot. You know, he was in good position and fell down on a deep shot. But other than that, they didn't go at him because they knew that guy's really good. And then Clarence Lewis, again, I like Clarence. I think Clarence has a chance to be a solid player. But name me another top 10 team where he's your starting boundary cornerback as a sophomore. There isn't one. And that's because they've had too many misses in the recruiting.
Right.
They've had too many years where they didn't sign corners, too many years where they signed corners who didn't stick, guys who didn't pan out. And it's cost them. It's really cost them. And they weren't able to get the young guys going this year. This is going to be a big point of emphasis moving forward.
Absolutely.
You've had two good recruiting classes in a row. Now you got to coach those kids up, and then you need to keep adding onto it. And you've got to start getting some higher level talent. Now, I don't care if it's a top 50 recruit or a guy that has the potential to be a top 50 recruit. The talent has to be there. And that's an area to me, Vince, where it was glowing in this game that there was nothing there was no player they could put in. There was no button they could push to just say, we're got to be better there. Now, number one, this was a bad game for Clarence. He did not play well.
Agreed.
Alabama didn't burn him like that last year.
Right.
North Carolina didn't burn him like that. Clemson didn't burn him like that last year, Trevor Lawrence. He had a bad game, but it was a bad game that came out of the fact that he also just isn't a high-level player at corner, especially boundary corner. Because and here's why that matters. Boundary corner in the makeup of this defense is a one-on-one player 9 out of 10 snaps.
Yep.
And I still wonder, like, the switch really worked for the season, but it'd have been nice if they could have been able to make a switch and put Cam Hart into the boundary and said, hey, look, for this game, this is what we have to do.
There. Yeah.
I think that stubbornness, or not stubbornness, but just unwillingness to make that move is something that I found to be concerning.
Sure.
But at the same time, the talent has to get better. I mean, we have to be honest about that's a spot. You can still win in spite of the corners being elite. We've discussed this, but we can also still admit that they need to be better. And the overall talent level at that position has to be better, Vince. It has to get better. And if that doesn't get addressed, and it's already starting to be addressed. I mean, I think Benjamin Morrison is that kind of player. I think Jaden Mickey can be that kind of player. I think Ryan Barnes can be that kind of player. Philip Riley has a chance, but he's going to need more work. You know, Chance Tucker is going to need time. I think he's got some upside, but I need to see where he is. Now, I think all those guys graded out a little bit higher to me than Clarence Lewis did, who I liked Clarence coming out of high school. But I always felt Clarence was going to be a guy that by his junior year was going to be ready to help you out, not as a sophomore and a freshman.
Right.
But he was forced into the action, and he stepped up, and for the most part, he battled. And that's why I get a little pissed off, I'm going to be honest with you, when I see people talking about like, take a scholarship away, that kid's this, that kid's that.
That's ridiculous.
We can criticize his play and still recognize the fact that the kid's playing his butt off and he's giving you the best he's got. It's just,
right.
It's kind of like Joe Schmidt. Like, we can criticize the player without, what's he supposed to do? Say, hey, coach, bench me. I suck.
Right.
Because he's had some good moments. And so that frustrates me because he's being thrust into a position and he's answering the bell to the best of his ability. The reality, however, is to the best of his ability is not good enough right now. And they have to do a better job. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. I've been saying that a lot lately. We can appreciate that Clarence is giving you everything he's got, and he's a good kid and he works hard and he does all that, and still say, but they got to get better. It's not an attack on him. It's just they got to get better because the evidence is there. It was there last year against Bama. It's there against Oklahoma State. It was there against North Carolina. The corner play as a whole has to get better. Now, this game was an anomaly in how badly he got beat so consistently. But, you think about how they're going to, the first game they're going to play next year, and you're going to have to face against Jackson Smith and Najigba. You're going to have to face against Marvin Harrison. I can't remember his name. I can't pronounce his last name. Emeka, the kid from Washington, who's a freshman, a 5-star player, who's going to step right into the starting lineup for Ohio State next year. They're going to be still really good at receiver. You're going to have better answers than just, I hope Clarence Lewis is okay. That can't be it. So I think to me, those are the areas of this football team where I say, we learned that, the teams are going to be able to game plan away from your defensive line taking over the game. They're going to be able to max pro. They're going to be able to move the pocket. They're going to be able to throw quick game. They're going to be able to, if you're going to go cover one, to just drop back and tell the quarterback, when you hit your last step, you just throw it up. Just throw it up and give your guys a chance. Now, I think that's something Tyree should learn a little bit from. I think sometimes it's okay to just say, hey, we got a one-on-one, let's take it. And with a better coached group of receivers, then we'll see that. Because there were times when Tommy Reese went to that. We saw that on the wheel route to Michael Mayer that he dropped. We saw that on the last drive that mattered, where he threw the one-on-one to Kevin Austin. It's just Notre Dame's receivers weren't given the tools to win those routes, and the Oklahoma State players were. So I think those are areas, Vince, too, where you've got to get a lot better. And again, that comes down to, Vince, the importance of improving your roster in the offseason from a recruiting standpoint, but also you've got to make sure you're finding the right answers when you hire new coaches. And,
absolutely.
Offensively, that's a big thing. Defensively, I think they have the right player in play, the right person in place coaching corners. There's no doubt in my mind that Mike Mickens is a really good cornerbacks coach. Just go look at Cincinnati, since he recruited and coached all the kids that are part of that great secondary. But now he's got to make sure that the system in place is there to help the players until he gets the right talent there, to where they can push some of the right buttons to make sure that hey, we see Clarence is being picked on, so we got to figure something else out. We can't keep blaming Clarence for getting beat one-on-one. We know they're going there, and we know he can't stop it. And so if he gets beat there again, that's on us, not him. Yeah. That's how coaches should look at this. Like, hey, you keep putting your left tackle in a position to block, the number one defensive end in the country, and he keeps getting whooped. Hey, that's on you. That kid's giving you the best he's got. He's just not good enough. That guy's better than he is. How about you help him out? That's your job as a coach. That's what you get paid the big bucks for.
Right.
And that was the one coaching thing that was really frustrating on Saturday. Was it's just like they kept hoping, like, gee, I hope Clarence can do it this time. And that's just not where you need to be.
And that's a lot of the issues I had with the secondary, and of course I could echo everything that you just said. I thought the safety position, the tackling at the safety position, I didn't think was very good. And I thought the safeties, they did okay. I thought Henderson had a few nice plays. I thought Xavier Watts was okay. I thought he did okay. But man, this is where personally I missed. I miss Kyle Hamilton,
and I didn't think it would get there. Honestly,
I didn't either.
We said before the game, and I don't think they're going to miss not having Kyle Hamilton, because I never saw this on film from Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
I think, and I know this is simplifying it to the nth degree. I get it, but I feel like having Kyle Hamilton in that game, Notre Dame wins
convincingly.
I really do feel that way. I do.
5 missed tackles from DJ Brown. That's where Kyle would have played,
and that's where he would have played.
And there was no fear of throwing deep. in this
No.
game. Like they were just
Right.
we're gonna keep taking shots. You're not gonna be as aggressive when number 14 is going side to side. But the reality is they don't have Kyle Hamilton on the roster next year either. So they're gonna have to figure some
no
things
question.
out.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It just that was the one, and I rarely say that one guy makes a difference on a football team, right? Because you need all 11. You do. But I feel like that would have made a major difference in this particular game. So yeah, absolutely. But hey, again, I think this is a one-off for the defense. I think that there are
degree of how badly they got
correct.
But I do think
it exposed some things.
You're still a really good defense,
right?
But to win a championship, which means to beat Bama, to beat Ohio State, to beat Clemson when they're at their best, to beat Oklahoma State,
sure,
you have to be able to. You have to get better at those areas.
Right.
You have to get better. And so now that's Marcus Freeman's objective. Get better in those areas and keep making your strengths even stronger, but then turn your weaknesses into strengths as well. That's going to be the key.
And step one is getting the right coaches hired.
That's right.
And that's what he's working on right now.
100%.
So let's see what happens. Let's let it play out.
And so far as we reported, Tom Loy was the first to report it, and then we followed up. We were able to confirm, was it Monday, that Notre Dame is expected to hire Brian Mason as their special teams coach. I've talked to some sources about this. He's from Cincinnati. Outside of the kicker, they had great special teams there, but I've heard that, number one, great recruiter, love his special teams production from what people have talked about. And then also I've been told that he can coach defense if you need him to. Like, I don't know if that's going to be the plan, but he coached the Rovers. They called them snipers. But the Rovers in the Cincinnati defense, he coached them. Now, I don't know if he's going to do that at Notre Dame.
I would not have a problem with that, by the way.
It hasn't been made official by Notre Dame, but
sure.
I see a lot of people reporting today that that's the case. We reported this, and Tom Loy also reported this on Monday. So, we've always said we're going to give credit where credit is due, and Tom was the first person that had this. And then we were able to follow up with our own sources and find out that is in fact where they're going. So, which is interesting. I'm gonna have a little story about this after the fact, because that is not where they were leaning for a long time. So I'm curious to hear kind of how it all played out. So, but I think in the end that's a good hire. Still hearing about Coach Easton, and we talked about all the other things. So that's kind of where we are with the recruiting stand.